Hey guys, welcome to this episode. Got a lot on my mind and this one's gonna be a hard one. So I'm going to type a verbal warning, but I will give you, alright. Hey guys, welcome to the next episode. I appreciate all of you guys who have constantly followed me and given me love and support. Like, you guys are the real MVPs. On today's episode, excuse me one moment, is going to be a little bit rough. I'm gonna type a warning for you guys, but I'm also gonna give you a verbal warning. So today I am going to talk pretty much kind of sexual abuse from point A to point B, kind of a lot of the things he made me do. So we're just kind of gonna dive into everything. I will try to watch my wording as far as making sure I don't go too inappropriate, but just watch with caution. So just know that it's going to be some explicit material and it's not easy to take in, but I just want it all out there. It needs to be out there. So here we go. So we're just gonna dive in. I know a lot of you guys have kind of already heard this, but we're just gonna kind of go from point A to point Z, just kind of zigzag in there. So if you've heard some of this, I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna kind of cover, like I said, all the sexual content today. So back when I was 13, my father, like I said, this is the first experience that I personally remember. So I don't know if it happened when I was younger. I don't know any of that. I just know that this was the first time I personally remember my father coming at me. I was 13. We were staying home from church, just him and I. He made me stay home because I had a cough. And so he thought, it was better for me to stay home. He had me walk up in front of him, pull my pants down while he did his thing in the background. I pretty much just stood there confused, crying, just kind of aware what was going on, but also just kind of a little bit confused. I was young and naive. So eventually, I would say within 2 to 3 weeks of my father doing that initially is kind of when he started to break the comfort and realizing that he could get away with more and more with me. So it came to a point where every Saturday or Sundays if we stayed home, but mostly on Saturdays, he would have me come into his room early in the morning. My mom, after she got up and was taking care of the little kids or whatever for the day, he would have me come in his room and lock the door. Now, I feel like it's pretty obvious because my little siblings would come up to the door and knock. Hey Dad, I have this, hey Dad, so it's they're always trying to get Dad for something, and he was just always, hold on, I'm busy, and I was obviously locked in the room with him. So how my parents not my parents, my family just doesn't get the concept that this started so soon. He was always like that, coming. So now my side of that. When I started in his room, it started off with a lot of just standing there facing the door while he jerked off. He just had me in his room while he did that. Eventually it became something where he had me turn around and take my shirt off and watch him. So now I'm standing shirtless, braless too, so just completely topless and watching him. Then it came to a point of, well, take your stuff off. So I'm standing in my underwear. Take all your stuff off, it eventually became. So now here I am, 14, maybe hitting on to 15 by this time, just standing in my father's room naked all the time just so he can do his thing. So eventually got to a point where he asked me to touch him. He asked me to, okay, he didn't ask me. That's not the right wording. He told me to touch him. He told me how to do it. He told me what to do, what lotion to grab, just all the things and that. So it came to a point where not only now was I just watching him, but now I was doing it. So that got extremely hard. But it's kind of just started to pick up more speed. Okay, so I did have to take a small break. That's why it's random cuts here and there. But this part, so it's extremely hard. So after he got comfortable, it was probably about 2 years, I would say, because we lived at this one home. So it's about 2 years where he felt comfortable with me just like touching him and being there naked. So we moved into another house, and I remember my father called me into his room one night. And so I went up to his room, and all the family was downstairs. I think we just ate dinner, and everybody was just chilling. And here I am having to go upstairs. Now, not only did he have me like undress, but he made me try to do it sexy. Like, he made me try to do a strip tease for him. So now here I am, confused at 15. I've never seen a stripper. Like, what? So now he's trying to get me to do like this strip. So doing what I can, you know. So imagine this 15-year-old on her father. So he's sitting there, has me strip down all of my clothes, and he asks me to sit on him, contact to contact, like just sit on him. No penetration at this time, but just sit there. And I remember just even then feeling so foul and just so grossed out. Like, not only did I not feel good about doing it in general at my age and at the time, I definitely did not want to experience that with my father ever, or for my first time. Just anything. Like, that's something that nobody should ever have to experience. So he had me sit on him for a while. So I sat on him. This time I'm hitting 16, reared into 17. So now I'm hitting 17, and we move into another house. Like I said, we moved a lot. So, but this time, this is my second. So if you guys watched my other story, this is the time when I was at the second house in the Woods Cross boundaries, when I had to go to Woods Cross with my brother. So this is right before we moved down to Pleasant Grove, so this home. So one day my father was in the bedroom, and calls me up, and he tells me he wants to give me a massage. And so he started doing that a lot. He started massaging me, where he would creep up and touch me. Like, he would pretend like it was an accident at first, for the first few massages, but honestly it happened more and more. Sorry guys, my hair was in braids today, so it's all over. So it happened more and more that he was massaging me, and he got past his comfort level each time. So each time he massaged me, he got like more and more comfortable to touch me. So eventually, before we moved out of this house, like close to the end of moving out of this home, before we moved into Pleasant Grove, that's where he got to the point of fully touching me. So he's doing massages and goes to the point of just penetrating these. And just the feeling of remembering that your father was just playing around in areas, and you felt so uncomfortable, and you're so tightened in your body. That's all I remember, is just feeling so just like clenched up and just wanting it to end. Like, that's all. Anytime he ever massaged me, touched me in general, like anywhere, I couldn't wait till he got his hands off of me. I hated when he touched me. So, like I was saying, so we got to a point where after massages, all of a sudden, one day he tells me, I want to examine down there. I want to make sure you're okay. I want to, you know, make sure that everything looks normal. Honestly, you guys know my story. I didn't have much of a choice. Like, what was I gonna do? Tell him no? So he could threaten to kill my life? Like, anytime I ever did, it was just, well, I'm gonna kill myself, and I'll kill you first, and it was just always that. Like, it was always, like, I was never allowed to tell anybody. And had I known at the time that I could have reached out to just my grandma or my uncles, I would have been saved, people. So if you were in this position, I know I keep getting off on this tangent. Gosh, I could have stopped so much of my abuse if I realized I could have reached out to people. That's why this is so important, because you need to reach out. If you're watching this and you stumble upon this, reach out, please. So, that was a tangent. But anyways, so he got to a point where he was just comfortable touching me. Like, he just came to a point, I'm going to examine you, I'm going to see this, and that's where he just, all the time. So, it became to a point where I had to come to his room, and I was then touching him, and he was then touching me. Like, it was just kind of I did his thing, and he thought he was doing something good for me. He thought that. Let's just say that. Like, I just cried, and I hated life the entire time. How he would ever feel good or satisfied about that is what I don't understand. Like, that's just the part that kind of, it's like, like, yeah, that's why I want him locked up. So he got comfortable touching me. We moved into Pleasant Grove, that story. When I was living with him by myself, that's where he started to, like, use this in places that I was uncomfortable with. He started to, yeah, so that happened. That's something I still struggle with today. Honestly, that was another, like, barrier that I wasn't felt comfortable with. None of it was I was comfortable with, but that was just the next step of just, like, that's what really drove me into a lot of my depression and suicidal. Like, once that happened, I knew that there wasn't much going back from him. So sure enough, we moved to my uncle's house for a little bit before we go to New Mexico, where he lets us live. And I've said this before, but I thought at the time when we were living there, like, this sexual abuse was going to slow down. Because it did. Because I wasn't able to, like, I wasn't around him all the time. We had such a big, like, my uncle let us, my family of 9, live with his family of, like, 8 or 9. So there's a lot of people in this home. So it came to a point my father couldn't really get away with it. So I was loving it. I didn't care how crowded the home was or dinner or anything like that. Like, I was loving it. Not having to be around my father. So we lived there for a while. But then it all drastically changed, like, hardcore when we moved to New Mexico. So we moved down to New Mexico. I finished my senior year out at Rio Rancho High School. I hated it. Like, I made some friends for the time being, but honestly, I don't think I could tell you a single name. Like, compared to the people I grew up with, right? Like, I know so many people that, like, through elementary, junior high that I still remember compared to, yeah, this high school, I couldn't tell you a single name. So it just hurt to be able to, to not be able to graduate with, like, the people you grew up with and just looking forward to all the things. So we moved down there, and as soon as I graduate, my father pulls me into the room on my graduation day and tells me how much he's in love with me and how much he wants to be with me. And so he tells me that he's worried about me going to college, giving me false hopes that I'm going to college.